I see through you.
What is going on, everybody? Today it is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. My name is Dante. We are 𝓟There, and today
What did you just do?
I see sinners in the church. I see sinners in the church. But before I even get into that, let me just go ahead and play the intro music.
Perhaps your skills do extend a bit farther than basketball.
All right, as I was saying, today it is Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. My name is Dante. We are 𝓟There, and today, like I said, I see sinners in the church. Oops. Test. Like I was saying, I see sinners in the church. I see sinners in the church. The day has come, y'all. The day has come. This honest, at least like this recording for me right now is probably like, this is like the call to action, like right now, basically. This is the CTA. The media is going after Joe Rogan. And why is this a call to action for me? Right? Well, first, let me just start off by saying thank you, Joe Rogan, for all that you have done, not just for me, but for the entire world. So let me just start off by saying that. And let me also start off by saying thank you to my patrons that support me on Patreon. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment, leave a like. Make sure you tell a friend to share it. And anyways, like I was saying, I'm going to use the term they because it's such a ambiguous term, but they are literally coming for Joe Rogan. Like I said, today's February 8th, and I would say over the last like 2 to 4 months, there has been sort of a coordinated effort to try and take out Joe Rogan from, the position he's in, which is, one point at a time. They're trying to take him from the position. They're trying to take him out from the position he's in. Now, what position is he in? You might ask. To me, I think the position Joe's in is kind of like Joe's just in his own experience, basically. It's kind of super vague, but he's in a position where he is able to basically talk to whoever he wants, right? And once again, air quotes, the old school media, the boomer media. I'm not going to use the term boomer. I'm just going to say legacy media. Legacy establishment, maybe legacy establishment. Either way, they do not like the fact that one man is able to have these conversations with all these different people. And the fact that so many people tune in to these conversations, the legacy media hates that because they have no control over it. right? So say you were to like watch a TV show, sorry, watch a TV show. They get to decide what TV shows even get made, you know? They get to decide which actors get put on what shows, what time the show will air, right? They have this whole structure in place. And what Joe has done has basically shown that there is no need for that structure because people will organically, I guess, follow who they feel inspired to follow on their own terms, right? So, for instance, Joe has never marketed, he's never marketed his podcast. He never went and did like a media tour trying to promote it or anything like that. All he simply did was recorded it like I'm recording it now and posted it online, right? And he just kept doing it and 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 doing it. This man's upwards of like 1,600 episodes, right? Like he literally did it again and did it again and did it again, you know? And just over time, once again, without promotion, without promotion, he's amassed this following, right? And it's a pretty big following, right? It's I would say it's an influential following because the people that actually choose to follow them, right? This is like they actively chose it. Like for instance, like me, right? The people that, how do I put this? Like, it's almost like Joe wouldn't have to ask any of his followers to do anything for him simply because of what he's done already so far would inspire you to just do it on your own. And this is why this episode is like a real call to action for me, right? Because like I said, I am one of those people who have been watching Joe Rogan for a long time. I watched him on Fear Factor. I grew up watching him on Fear Factor. I grew up watching him commentate the UFC, right? And then I would say I grew up listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, right? And just listening to the podcast on a side note has helped me grow up in so many more ways than people could not even imagine, right? And I'm sure it's not just me. I'm sure it's so many other people, right? And like I said, the reason I feel like this is a real call to action is because this attack that's going on, and sorry, let me even go into the attack. So there's this video that's been circling, that's been posted of all the times Joe Rogan has used the N-word on his podcast, right? And it's not even like, it's literally just it's like a supercut. So it's only the portion where the words actually leave his mouth. They just cut that portion out and then made like a whole like compilation of it, right? And basically said, oh, you know, Joe Rogan's racist because he said the N-word. And it's so blatantly obvious that it's like, it is an attack. Like, at least the way it has been going down, like I said, over the last few months, it's like Joe Rogan said he uses ivermectin, and then you have CNN just going off on that, right? And then Joe Rogan did this. It's all in the news. Oh, Joe Rogan's bad. Da, 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 da. And now it comes to this. Someone posted a compilation of not all the, I don't know if it's all the times, but a few times when he did say the N-word. And then now you have people like in the White House saying, Spotify should, do more work to try and censor Joe Rogan. And the way they even frame these things, this is what makes it so like apparent that it's like a targeted attack, because, if you've listened to Joe Rogan, right? If you've actually listened, not just, watch clips on YouTube or anything, but if you've listened to a whole, 3-hour podcast, 2-hour podcast, 4-hour podcast, 5-hour podcasts. Like, who even does that? I mean, I'm sure there are people that do it, but 5 hours? Anyways, if you actually listen to it, you would know and you would feel, right? Because it's not even something that you learn, right? It's not something that, like, I could say I read in a book and the book said Joe Rogan's not racist. It's like over the hundreds of hours that I've consumed, I can come to the conclusion that Joe Rogan is not racist, right? But you have, once again, these people, they who are trying to convince everyone else who doesn't listen to Joe Rogan that all the problems in the world are because of him and that he's racist. And so to people that don't listen, right? People that have never seen Fear Factor, have never watched any UFC events ever, and don't listen to the Joe Rogan experience, they're just going to believe whatever they say because the people that are saying it, and this is where, air quotes, I was like, are from a place of authority, right? So if you're someone that's been watching CNN for the last 20 years, and then all of a sudden Joe Rogan on CNN, they're saying that he's racist or he's spreading misinformation, which is also a messed up term to be using. You basically have no choice but to believe what CNN is saying, because if you decide that, this is what I feel like they're lying about, like, then you would have to go back on all those 20 years of you believing everything they said, taking their word for it, and then really start to question, right? And this is why I needed to, and this is why this is like such a call to action to me, right? For those of you that know, Joe Rogan had a TV show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. Joe Rogan Questions Everything, right? And basically, he would just go around talking to people that believed in Bigfoot, aliens, this, that. This was, I'm not sure if it was before the podcast. Maybe it was like a little bit during the podcast, like the early days. But that idea of questioning everything, right, is almost demonized now. You're questioning everything is almost, it's almost illegal. But yeah, so that's one of the big characteristics that I've picked up, right, just by listening to the Joe Rogan experience. Is like, hey, it's okay to question things that you don't understand, right? Maybe you're questioning it because you want to get a better understanding. Maybe the way it was explained to you doesn't make sense in your head. I know I'm not the only one where, maybe someone has to explain something to me a different way just because the way they explain it the first time, it doesn't make sense. Like for instance, say, you have some people that are, they'll say, oh, I'm bad at math, blah, 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 blah. But then if you really think about it, math is the same for everybody, right? So it's who really explained it to you or how it was taught to you that you would really form your opinion on math. Because say, like, I know I'm rambling, but I remember I had one math teacher that, I had a bad experience with, and it was hard to learn math, even though I enjoy math. And then I had another teacher who, made math as enjoyable as it can be, with it being math. But I was actually able to do well in that class. And it's all because, they had like a different perspective, right? So if I had just heard that initial way of, learning math from the teacher that, maybe I didn't click with right, they weren't teaching it in a way to where I was able to understand it, I would just go about my day, just be like, well, that's it for math. I don't need it. Math is garbage. Math is boring. There's no use for math. But then, over time, I might be like, how could I use math in this specific situation? Or how might that math thing that I saw 2 days ago be relevant to now? And just by even thinking in that like aspect, right? Just questioning, once again, going back to the questioning everything, like I said, we're at almost a point where it's gonna be, I don't want to say it, but it's like, you're not going to be able to question some things, right? So basically this recording, I wanted to talk about, not only what I learned, well, yes, what I learned, but also like, for instance, I have right here next to me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. 6 books alone that I probably would not have heard of if it weren't for Joe Rogan. Okay. So I have, the Book of 5 Rings, and there's a famous quote which Rogan basically lives by because he has a tattoo. He has a tattoo of this guy, but he says, "Know the way broadly and you will see it in all things. Question everything." Know the way broadly and you will see it in all things. That's a Miyamoto Musashi quote from the Book of 5 Rings. I would have never have known about this if it weren't for Joe Rogan. Next, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. A Toltec wisdom book. I would have never heard about this or read this book if it were not for Joe Rogan. So thank you for that. The War of Art, which I've mentioned several times on this podcast already. I would not have known if it weren't for Joe Rogan. Now I got these 2 hefty boys, right? I'm gonna clash them together and just listen to this. Can you guys hear that? That's how hefty these books are. These 2 books here I specifically bought because I'm going to use they again, are literally trying to hide this book. And there's another book that I want to get before they start trying to hide it too. But, guests like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson literally change the way you look at the world. Like once you listen to those episodes, you can't even go back to living the same way you lived before, because now you just look at it in such a different way. Like there's so much more possibilities than what you were taught, and this is one of the things I've been coming to realize. So anyways, real quick, the other 2 books, the hefty boys, right? Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock and America Before by Graham Hancock. And just, a little side note on that in Canada, these books, if you go to like an Indigo or something or a Chapters, they made a specific section for just these books. And the section is one book wide because it only contains these books in them. They put these books in the controversial knowledge section. What does that even mean? What is controversial knowledge? Yo, is knowledge just not knowledge? Like, what is going on? These books were in the controversial knowledge section, which shows to me that, you know, there's like almost an attempt to like, hey, you could read this book, but you know, the knowledge in here is problematic, so it's not going to be real. Like, what? Doesn't make sense to me. The fact that they would even go to the extent of printing out the cards for the controversial knowledge section, and there's only 2 books in it. Like, what? Anyways, yeah, these books basically talk about how there may have been an earlier civilization, earlier than what we believe is the earliest, because we believe that, you know, the ancient Egyptians were the first civilization. But, you know, and you'll learn this when you read these books. Like, I haven't read through these books yet, like, because like I said, they're hefty. Like, how many pages does this one have? It's at least over 700, I'm guessing. It is 580 pages for the first one. The other one is around the same size. Yeah, 580. So 583, 580. That's 1,000 pages. Okay. Of just undeniable facts, right, that these books contain, because it's not just hearsay that these books contain. It's more like, here's a photo of this statue that was made at this time that has been carbon dated to this time, and then this place and this da 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 da. Here is undeniable evidence. Here's undeniable evidence. And the fact that he put it in a book, once again, this smear campaign is like, this guy's a psychopath. This guy's going against the establishment. This guy's, you know, whatever it may be. And once again, I would have never have even heard of these books because they're trying to hide it. It's not being promoted. The author couldn't even get a publisher for a while because no one wanted to touch these ideas. But if it weren't for Joe Rogan, I would have not have heard these books or have heard of this author. And I wouldn't have heard this author even speak about these points at length, right? This is why these are some of my favorite podcasts, because they have so much information, not racism. Like they're trying to say that, oh, every episode contains racism. Like, if you go on, I guess maybe they're still on YouTube, but if you check Spotify, you know, there's at least 4 episodes with Graham Hancock, 3 episodes with Randall Carlson. There's an episode with Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. Like, there's books with John Anthony West, there's episodes, with John Anthony West, who's an ancient Egyptian, I guess, studier, and who also has some great theories on certain things. But once again, like, you would never know about these things if it weren't for Joe Rogan, because no one else is giving them a place to talk. It's like shadow banned almost, right? Like, and this is another thing. The fact that the Joe Rogan podcast is such a culture of, you know, long form dialogue, right? Long form conversation. that is something that you don't see in legacy media, right? And I'll say this again, it's mostly what I believe is because they need to control what is said on TV. You know, you have your 6 minutes to say your point, then they're going to cut to commercial, and then they're going to come back and say, so anyways, as this person was trying to say, and then fill it in and not really let them get their point across and interrupt the conversation. Whereas Joe Rogan presents like a whole new avenue, even though it's existed, like just genuine conversation has existed for forever. You know, like he's able to really bring these people on, right? And it's not just athletes, it's not just, you know, people that talk about, you know, ancient civilizations and stuff like that. Like there's doctors, Neil deGrasse Tyson, like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, like who else could you name? Like I would have never heard of Your Mom's House podcast. I would have never heard of the Church of What's Happening Now. I would have never heard of the artist David Cho. You know, things like this should not be just glossed over. At least things like this should not just be glossed over because one person decides to say that this man is racist and everybody should agree with what I'm saying. And if you don't agree, you're also racist. It doesn't make logical sense. Not to me. And I'm black. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And this is really why it's a call to action, because we see what the establishment, the people, what they'll decide to do when they feel it's time. So when they feel it's time that, you know, okay, Joe Rogan's had his fun. We don't like the way that he's talking to people for 3 hours. We don't like the fact that he can, you know, he can have people from both sides and just have a conversation. Like I was saying, there's an episode with Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. Well, there was an episode with those two. And then on top of that, there was another episode with those two with someone that criticized their work. And they had an open discussion for hours. This cannot exist on regular TV because they have commercials to promote, you know. Tide has Tide Pods to sell. Bounty has, what does Bounty sell? Bounty has laundry. Bounty, what is Bounty? I don't even remember. I haven't even watched TV in so long. Like, I don't even know what the advertisers are on, but you get my point. There is no interruptions. It's like I said, it's just genuine conversation. And the more they try and, you know, label Joe Rogan as, you know, a racist, the more they show their true colors in trying to smear someone's character for their own benefit, right? Because them going down this route negates anybody that Joe Rogan may have helped over the past however long. And once again, this is why it's a call to action. Because Joe Rogan has helped me so much over the past years, I'm basically indebted. I shouldn't say indebted, but it's like, hey, this guy helped me. It's my turn to help him back. And this is why it's a call to action. And this is why, you know, I've been rambling for almost 30 minutes. This is probably the longest recording I've done in terms of just the recording. I might even do a YouTube video on this, but I'm not one to get too political. But like I said, I see sinners in the church. I see sinners in the church. And what do you even do? Who do you even go to when you see sinners in the church? Like, you can't tell the pastor. Yo, it's actually crazy out here. But it just goes to show you that, when you get to a certain level, there's always going to be people that, whether or not you're doing good for other people, whether or not, you have millions of people follow you out of their own free will, whether or not you have done thousands of episodes, and it's only now that you're being portrayed as a racist. Like, it just goes to show you that. What does it show you? Let me see. What does it show me? It shows me that you need to be self-sufficient. You can't how do I put this? Not to say that you shouldn't have any weaknesses, but you have to be self-sufficient, meaning like, I can't be tied to a network, and then because I'm tied to that network, I'm no longer allowed to speak my mind on these issues. Because what happens is, if you're not allowed to speak your mind on the issues, then the issues will just continue like they want them to. Right? And that's what it's really showing. You can't, even though Joe did go to Spotify, which maybe he'll learn. You do learn from your mistakes and stuff like that. If it is a mistake, who knows? But, it's really more about, you have to build your own platform, your own community. And that's what the Chez Dante community really is. It's a place, it's a spot where we can all meet and just talk about things that we've learned and share things that we've learned. And, we can leave with new things that we've learned, right? So I can bring in, maybe you've never heard of Graham Hancock or Randall Carlson. And just by listening to me, you now go and listen to those episodes. And then you comment like, bro, I didn't even know the earth could exist like this. What? And now you look at everything in a whole new way. Like I said, the Kanye episode, for example, that changed my life. That literally changed my life. And before that episode, not to say I wasn't like the biggest Kanye fan. Like, Kanye just really wasn't big in my household. I grew up hearing his songs and stuff like that on the radio, and here and there at school dances and parties and stuff like that. But he was never really one of the main people we listened to in my house. But then I listened to him on the Joe Rogan Experience, and it's like, the way he is here is not the way that they tell you he is on TMZ or on this or on that. Like, he seems like pretty normal, like everybody else that shows up on that podcast. They're just normal people having a conversation. Like, there's an episode with yeah. He did an episode with Robert Downey Jr. where he was talking about being in blackface. Like, yo. Are they gonna revisit that? What's gonna happen? Are they gonna cancel the Marvel Cinematic Universe because Robert Downey Jr. played a black guy in Tropic Thunder? Like, is that what's gonna happen? A possibility. Who knows? Maybe that's why they spoiler alerts, but maybe that's why he died in Endgame. They're like, hey man, things are getting pretty wild out there. We know that you played a black guy in Tropic Thunder, so we're just gonna preemptively kill off your character. That way, we as Disney cannot be canceled for hiring you. Either way. Oh, and here's one last thing. One last book. I haven't even started reading this, but this author, maybe you've heard of him, maybe you've heard his quotes. Alan Watts, once again. I would have not even known of this man, heard of this man, understood what he does if it were not for Joe Rogan. And I have this book here called Become What You Are by Alan Watts. And what's so crazy is that as I'm looking at this book, there's literally a mirror, there's like a reflective piece of this book. And I'm like looking at it right now. Become What You Are by Alan Watts. Basically, it's be yourself. But once again, I would have never even heard of these guys. I'll go ahead and list them off again. Don Miguel Ruiz, Miyamoto Musashi, Stephen Pressfield, Alan Watts, Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, Brian Morescu with the Immortality Key. Like, there's so much knowledge that was shared on that podcast. It would be a shame for it to be like canceled. You know, like there's probably, if you really think about it, okay, Joe Rogan got paid $100 million to move to Spotify, but like the sheer like worth of knowledge. I was reading a book. I forget, or it was like a quote. Maybe it was in here. Let me see if I can find the quote. Oh, you know what? It was from yesterday's episode. Here it is, right? Let me read this from yesterday's episode. Invest in your own knowledge and skill development. Since the only real security is the kind that's inside each of us. Practice what Ben Franklin wrote. If an individual empties his purse into his head, no one can take it from him. Right? Meaning all the value that you can get from books, if you go ahead and say you spend like $30 on a book and then you read the book, all that knowledge goes into your head. How much is that book now worth? Right? Yeah, you bought it for $30, but say you read Think and Grow Rich, right, by Napoleon Hill. You buy the book from your bookstore for $15, but you become a millionaire after reading it. Is the book only worth $15? No. It's worth, however much it is worth to you, which, like I said, you could be a millionaire just by reading that book. And with that in relation to that, with this whole Rogan thing is like, Rogan has hours and hours and hours of information and knowledge and experts and, subject matter experts, people that have literally walked the walk and talked the talk. He's had, Hoist Gracie, pioneers of UFC. He's got like literally, I want to say he's had everybody on the podcast, but obviously he hasn't. But the amount of knowledge that's on there, just that fact alone, right? The amount of knowledge that you can pick up just by listening. Oh, here's another. I heard of a book from an episode between Joe Rogan and Michael Yo, and they talk about the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That also changes the way I look at things. Anyways, I know I've been rambling. It's almost been 40 minutes. I did not expect to go for this long, but I low-key felt like I would because of the subject matter. I might do a part 2. We'll see. Maybe I'll do an update. I don't want this to be like a update on the news podcast, but like I said, this is a real call to action. So this is a call to action for me, so I'm going to give you guys a call to action. Once again, tell a friend to share this with a friend. Make sure everyone brings back something new, 𝓟There. And until the next time, here is the outro music.
Further.
I'm sorry?
You said my skills extend farther than the basketball court. Farther relates to distance. Further is a definition of degree. You should have said further.